We are back here today with the guys who channel the pantheon of Chinese history, myths and legends. That's right, we are talking about Tangzu, and today we have here in the studio is the brand new Nezha. And I must praise them this time around because they finally got his name right in the right order too. It is Nezha, not Zhana, or like previously they called Dufu, Futu. It's very weird, I don't know why, but this time they got it right. Also, just sharing with you, if you follow my socials, I have something very special going on that it's celebrating the channel because it's year and I want to do something special. So do check out my socials for that. And also, for friends who are already subscribed, thank you so much. You are awesome. But if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you can be awesome too by just subscribing. Getting back on with the review, so Nezha is a Chinese demigod that has mentions in folklore such as Journey to the West, as well as appearing in Taoism as well. So growing up, I watched a lot of Journey to the West, and Nezha is basically the guy who flies around with flaming wheels on his legs. How that thing flies, I have really no idea. Nezha comes in a huge box, and on the sleeve of the box it's just him plastered right smack center. I must say though that this version of Nezha looks pretty anime-ish. Anyways, nothing too special on the sleeve as this is a sample unit that is out on tour, so much so that the print isn't the one you get on the final retail unit. Removing the sleeve is a magnetic box and inside it sits the earphones themselves. Of course, you also have that really huge oversized case that looks really nice in the box, but when you actually want to use it, it is actually too big for most practical users. Inside the box is the rest of Nezha's accessories, including the cable that has a 3.5mm and 4.4mm interchangeable head. And the next bit can be easily missed as there is a hidden layer underneath the foam. These are the in-house ear tips from Tangzu, the Sunchai and Sunchai white ball ear tips. Really nothing too much in such a huge box, but then again, this can be because that this is a tour unit and has been going around for quite some time. So next, let's talk about build quality. Made from resin, Nezha isn't an iron that I will risk sitting my ass on them. They feel sturdy, but because it's resin, I won't risk dropping them around too much. You don't really want cracked shells. The faceplate features some red foil underneath the motif and can be seen as an expression of the fire associated with the mythological Nezha. After all, he has those flaming wheel things. The rest of the chassis is just a non-see-through black chassis, so absolutely no chance of seeing the drivers. Quite a simple chassis design that isn't overly complicated, and the red foil is a really nice touch to tie the myth to the earphones. Inside the earphones are 6 balanced armature plus 1 EST driver. Earlier in September I mentioned that it was a pair of piezoelectric tweeter instead, but that seemed to have changed on the final version. It's honestly a little bit confusing as even on the sleeve of this tour unit states that it's a piezo, but I'm pretty sure they have sorted it out by now. The Nezha comes in a 2-pin cable. Materials of choice would be an OFC silver-plated copper. It has an interchangeable plug system and have provided a 3.5 and 4.4mm plug as well. This is a friction-based system, so don't try to change around the plugs too much as this type of plugs will eventually become loose. Yeah, so don't change them too much. Sound. There's a trend for more exciting treble in 2023 and I really like this style of tuning as it gives the perception of higher resolution. And if you think that the Nezha is going that direction, no it really isn't. Nezha takes an alternate approach to this by having a smoother, less excitable upper mid-range, which makes them perfect for folks who like to take a more laid-back approach to listening. I'll say that the Nezha leans warm and by extension, note weight would be thicker than what is common in 2023. On the whole, dynamics on it is above average. Certainly not the most dynamic pair that I've heard, but enough for it to be exciting sounding. So diving in, bass. Bass has a good level of resonance on the Nezha. By all accounts, it is quite plentiful with good levels of immediate details. Rumble is satisfying, but I wish for it to be just a hair more dynamic. Sub-bass extension goes quite deep and is well supported by a good thumpy bass section. I found that tonally they sound better when the music isn't complicated, and if you're listening to a lot of synth bass with a pure tone, that would really shine on the Nezha. However, when it comes to other types of music such as pop or rock, the tonal characteristics of bass here is that they lack a bit of micro detail. It is there but isn't as prominent as I'd like. Mid-range of the Nezha to me is the highlight of the earphone. As mentioned, this earphone leans warm. The Nezha has quite a thicker tonal weight that is really quite refreshing to listen to. On the whole, mid-range has a very liquid character that is very apparent, very smooth, should I say. Male vocals are the star of the show with the Nezha. Very full sounding with good levels of gravitas in terms of tone. It really accentuates the fullness of tone and can be what I describe to be thicker sounding, almost physically girthy. Female vocals still lean in on the smooth character. It also takes a thicker character, making a euphonious sound and what I would describe as sweet and syrupy. Instruments in this frequency band still have very natural separation. Resolution in the mid-range is actually quite a bit better than the bass renderings. Treble extension is decent on the Nezha. It does have one ESC driver inside it, and that would suggest having a sparkling finish up top. I found that on the whole, treble is very decent, certainly not the most airy in terms of IEMs that I've heard, but it packs a pretty decent performance. I like how it creates good definition between the notes in the mid-range. Also, your hi-hats and cymbals are crisp and not too dampened, as the sound of these type of warmer IEMs tend to render them that way. To me, they still sound pretty natural, but I would have liked for a bit more perceived airiness. Soundstage, when it comes to width and height, the thing about warm IEMs is that because they have a thicker tonal weight, they suffer a bit when it comes to soundstage. Width and height performance is just good, not reaching stellar. I just get a large mass of sound in the center, with the tonal weight being quite thick. When it comes to depth and positioning, depth perception is again good, but not reaching the levels of excellence. There is good layering performance, but I wish for it to be a little bit more. Positioning is okay, although instruments are clear, vocals take a huge portion of the center stage, leaving instruments positioning to be quite centered as well. Next up, versus some very crucial comparisons. So firstly, versus my favorite IEM of this year, the Simgot EA1000. Now the Simgot EA1000 would be the counterpoint to the Nezha. It is a neutral warm set with a more prominent and exciting upper mid-range with a very neutral tonal weight. I found that the EA1000 renders details better than the Nezha, especially in the bass region where the added resonance from the passive radiator is paired very well with excellent level of details. The EA1000 does soundstage better as it is just more airy with greater depth and positioning. However, the Nezha is a smoother and more polite listening experience. Great for people who want a more laid-back approach to listening. For those of you who like to just laze on your chair and just listen to music and not be too engaged with it. Versus the ThieAudio Hype 2. So the Hype 2 is a little bit more V-shaped by comparison to the Nezha. Based on the Hype 2 has good levels of resolution and push, which I found to be more favorable by comparison as well. The Hype 2 has better micro details in the bass region. However, there is something really magical when it comes to the vocals rendered by the Nezha. There is more body on it and it's pretty syrupy. The ThieAudio does not have the same level of body, but has a little bit more excitement in the upper mids. At the end of the day, the question, if you're considering between these two IEMs, would be, do you want a better all-rounder, which would be the Hype 2, or do you prefer listening to beautiful vocals embodied by the Nezha? And finally, in conclusion, Nezha really wowed me with the mid-range. It's just so deliciously sweet and syrupy. I do wish for a bit more resolution in bass and perhaps a little bit more dynamics. But on the whole, I can see folks who love mid-range vocals, that kind of thing, to really enjoy this pair. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Supercharged Super Audio Show. If you like the content so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button down below. Also, just to reiterate, do check out my socials as there is something special going on. Check that out and you'll find out the interesting thing. With that said, thank you guys for watching the Supercharged Super Audio Show. I hope to see you guys very soon.